the puck's going in the net. We've had some moments where our power play still hasn't been good. You can even go back to not necessarily the Buffalo game, but the Washington game. We score a couple goals, or even the Tampa game. You go back, you score a couple goals late where our power play wasn't good for the first two periods. It got good when we needed it to. And Washington, it was okay, and you're able to score. But it's about getting pucks to the net and getting it through, getting it down there, and then creating and having some traffic at their net.
Do you like the traffic in front?
The goals that we scored, going back to Horton's goal against Tampa, the goaltender never saw it because Anisimov was standing right there. Matty Calvert, it wasn't a power play goal, but our goal in Buffalo, the guy was just coming out of the box, and he was right out front of the net. The other goal against Tampa, Letestu and Anisimov are right there, and Letestu deflects it in. So it's pretty easy. You get pucks to the net and have people there, and generally good things happen. Doesn't always end up in a positive result as far as a goal, but you're probably creating some chances and some scrums out front of their net.
It's been kind of power play by committee lately, right? A lot of guys getting in on it.
That's because our power play was struggling before that, and we decided that there were times that maybe we were giving guys reps on the power play that weren't earning it throughout the game, and so we, instead of having, I think, the traditional two power play groups, we put a third one in, and we've seemed to have some success now.
Last time you faced the Kings, David Savard was in your lineup that night on an emergency recall. Does that seem light years ago when you think about Savard?
Are you referring when we were in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does, because I remember that game. Did he comment on the game?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he was in over his head that game, and it was tough because he was on a recall, and it was at the end of the year, and the intensity and all of those games at the end of the year it was playoff intensity. So it not easy for a young guy to come in after a recall and go out on the West Coast, and they're a great team. They play a hard, heavy, fast game, especially in their building. And there were times that I remember he was overwhelmed. But it wasn't just him either. We had other guys on our back end that kind of fell into that.
But now, his game now after half season up here.
Well, much, much better. There's still going to come a moment here where the games are going to rev up, the intensity, the speed, the physicality, and he's going to have to rev it up too. And I would think, based on playing the whole season with us now, that'll be an easier adjustment for him than playing the American League and all of a sudden get thrust right into the middle of it.
Have you seen a transition? I mean, it's borderline remarkable with him. I mean, from where he was, I guess, last year. I know he was playing with an injury, and his fitness wasn't quite where everyone wanted it to be. But based on the first 40 whatever games he's played, has it been one of the more remarkable turnarounds?
Well, it's been real positive for him, and I think a lot of it, at least he should. I think he's got to give himself credit, but a lot of it is, I think, how he trained this summer and things he did this summer. And it just goes to show you that when you invest in yourself and you invest in the summer and doing the things that you need to do, it will affect your game. And he went from in my book, a bubble guy, a guy that was up or down, to a guy that's proven he can play at this level and be a good player at this level. And is there more to him? I think there is. I think there's, he can get into be a top 4, top 2 defenseman, maybe. There's still got to be more speed in his game, doing things a little bit quicker. But where he was at last season at this time compared to where he is now, that's we talked about Ryan taking some big steps in his career. David Savard's done the same thing.
Anything you go ahead?
What are the keys tomorrow against the Kings, Todd?
It's probably the same that we've been talking about over this stretch, but things we've talked about all season. But I think it's had more impact now is just real discipline game. These guys I think play a lot and resemble a lot like the St. Louis Blues. Big, heavy, simple, but hard. And what I mean by simple is they're a straightforward team. There's not going to be a lot of crisscrossing, a lot of drop passes and tic-tac-toe. So they can do that. but they're a straightforward team. They're going to dump it. They'll grind you. They'll play heavy. They'll play fast, and real strong. So, out front of our net is going to be key, and how we manage the puck. But there's a lot of things that I could probably mention what we need to do. But it's going to be prepared to battle against a big, heavy team.
Did the lessons you guys learned early in the season when they were avoiding situations where lows were getting too low, do they apply those same lessons now that they're trying to avoid a high getting too high, or are those two separate skill sets?
No, I think you're right. One thing is, it's easy to motivate yourself when you're not winning games. It's easy to, we got to win games, and sometimes it's not as easy to motivate yourself when things are going well, and sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the success that you're having, and we haven't accomplished anything yet. Nothing's done. I mean, we still got 30 plus games to go, and tough schedule against tough teams. And what we've done now too is, to me, we've put a target on our backs. You've won 6 in a row, and LA's going to come in here and say, well, this team's playing well, so we got to be ready. Teams that we're ahead of in the standings are going to be looking at us saying, well, this is a team that we got to catch. And teams that are in front of us, we've closed the gap, and so we got a target on our backs now, and we got to be ready for that. But we can't let complacency and arrogance come into our game, and thinking that we're something else than what we are. And what I mean by that is success is the success we've got is by how we work and the simplicity in our game. And if we try overcomplicating the game and trying to become something that we're not, a passing tic-tac-toe type team, after 60 minutes or after a week, we're going to be sitting back going, what just happened? So we have to maintain and stay with our identity.
Streaks come and go, but you do have a chance to set up franchise record. I mean, this is a franchise over 12 years. I mean, to have 7 wins is a record. That means you're raising the bar.
Well, it would be an accomplishment, but to me, it's another win, and that's what we have to do. Again, we can't let the highs get too high, and the lows can't be too low. And that's one job of, I think, as a coach is to maintain that focus. Maybe at the end of the year, at the end of your career or whatever, if you do have something in the record books, it's something you can look back on and have some pride in. But for me right now, it's about getting ready for LA and trying to get 2 points.
Have you ever attempted to storm into an opposing dressing room with your Dukes on?
No. I know my own toughness, and I think that would be suicide number 1, doing that. But no, that never once has ever crossed my mind.
So was there any hesitation to start Bob Saturday?
Was there any? No. After coming out of the game Friday, I had made the decision pretty much as soon as I got back to the coach's office on Friday.
And obviously he felt great.
Yeah, no issues, and obviously played a great game.
Tootin and Skilly both out there today. Do you have updates on those?
Tootin feeling better. I'm assuming that he'll be good. I haven't talked with our trainer. I'm assuming that he'll be good to go tomorrow. I haven't gotten the word of that yet, but it was just an illness. So once he's feeling good, and our practice today, he looked fine in it too. And then Jack, he's progressing. So getting to a point where he can get out and skate with us and do some of the drills with us is a positive step.
You talked about knowing your own toughness. I mean, you are a nice guy. Nathan Horton's a nice guy. You're both, according to the players, leaders. How do you lead when you don't have that jerk quality that some other leaders have? When you think of leaders, mostly you think of the guys who will shove someone against a locker, or you think of Patton or someone like that.
Leaders come in all different shapes and forms and different personalities, and I think the biggest thing about being a leader is you have to earn the respect of everyone that's around you and who you come into contact with. That's number 1, and it's how you treat people, and it's how you work. It's just to me it's pretty simple. If you want to lead, number 1, you got to set the example and you got to do the right things.
Could someone with and I'm not asking you about your situation in particular, just in general, could someone with a Nathan Horton type temperament be a captain?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He does some things, you look at it, there's a passion to play the game, there's a fun to play the game, and, he leads by example. Is he perfect? Does he do all the right? No, he's not. He'll make mistakes in games, but he understands his mistakes. He knows, and for the most part, he doesn't repeat them, and that's what you have to do. It's not there's different things for me. There are leaders and then there are cheerleaders. And to me, that's kind of false leadership. The guys that want to always say something, whether it's wherever it's at. To me, that's false leadership. The leaders, for the most part, usually don't say too much. It's always about their actions. That's how they lead.
Has lack of a captain come up at all recently? The subject?
Has lack of a captain come
Yeah.
up for what?
Just has it been talked about?
No, it hasn't. That's the first question probably since.
Well, that wasn't about your situation.
Probably a
Not
good.
from us, though,
Yeah.
but from within the
No.
organization.
No. Again, I think you have to find out what works and what's best for your group. And again, it's this is what we feel right now at this moment.
What have you liked about Boone Jenner's game since you put him with Anisimov and Horton? It seems like he's come along nicely the last little while here.
Well, Boone works,
Yeah.
and I think what helps him is Artie's a really, really smart center, and Boone can work, and he's young. He's still got a lot to learn, and he's playing in the wing, which isn't natural for him. And I think there are some mistakes that he makes, but because he's playing with Artie, I think Artie helps protect those mistakes. And Boone can go out and just play with his heart and his legs, and that's what he does. I mean, he doesn't take a shift off. He doesn't take a practice off. And again, that's what you want from your young players. But he's done a nice job. He scored some big goals for us. He can shoot the puck. He's gotten better. But again, he's a young player, so he's going to make those youthful mistakes. But you want to see him improving, and that's what we're seeing in him.
It seems like each component of that line brings something to the table that complements the others. Was that your thought process as you put those three together, that each of them does something well?
That wasn't necessarily the reasoning for it, but some of it was past success and trying to find combinations. Johansson's line had a history. Dubinsky, Calvert, and Atkinson had a history. They're almost a little bit the misfit line, misfit toys, where you had some extra parts and you put them down, and not that you went, well, this guy, these guys are cast-offs. That's not what we're saying. That's not what I'm saying. But you looked at it and you're like, maybe this has potential because you got two big, strong wingers. You got a really smart center. Horty can score. Boone plays with a lot of energy, and we looked at it and said, well, let's try it. This possibly could work, and I think it has.
Knowing that those other combinations had played together in the past, has the Anisimov line's boost really given you guys that four-line balance that you've been looking for?
I think moving Dubinsky back to centerman has given us that, and some of it is getting Calvert and Horton back into our lineup, because with both of those guys out, we were a little bit thin on the wings, and that's the reason why Dubinsky was moved to the wing. So moving Doobie, I think, back to center and getting those other two guys back helped create that depth.
Makes you harder to defend too, right?
Well, we potentially have three lines that can score, and I like the way Letestu, McKenzie, and Trop have played, providing some good energy and being able to forecheck and do some different things from their end.
Who's the most likely guy in your team to go Richard Sherman in an interview?
To do what?
To go Richard Sherman in an interview?
What's Richard Sherman in an interview?
It's a classic. It's after the Seattle win last night. He just went off.
He scared the
okay.
sideline reporter.
Okay, all right. Now I know what you're talking about.
Best quarterback of all time.
Yeah, well, number one, I saw his reaction. He's the one that knocked down the pass, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he had the reactions afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. Who would do that on our team?
Yeah.
I hope nobody. would ever do that.
Is anybody in this division catching Pittsburgh?
No. No.
Everybody's playing for two.
Well, Pittsburgh created the gap when all these other teams were struggling. They were winning, created a cushion and a gap, and they're a good team. They're a really good hockey team. So and for any team to catch him, they would have to free fall for a while, and that isn't going to happen in Pittsburgh.